Hey everyone, my name is Jess and welcome back to Right in the Childhood. So we just finished playing Second Sight last week, so it's time for another game review. So each time I complete a game, I'm going to give it a rating, and I have created a sort of scale, I guess, for each game to be rated on. I call it the Jess scale, named after myself. So let's go over that really quick. Each game will be rated in 7 different categories: gameplay, characters, replay value, music, atmosphere, graphics, and story. Each category contains subcategories worth 5 points each. The highest total a game can receive is 100 out of 100. I will also give each game a difficulty rating from 1 to 10, which will not contribute to its overall score. Let's begin at the top of the list with gameplay, so the first subcategory here is controls. The control scheme in this game is interesting. Um, Even as a relatively experienced gamer, I actually do struggle with it sometimes. Targeting is especially tricky. There's often lots of extra items around the room, boxes, or whatever. Sometimes I target those by mistake, sometimes I accidentally equip a power instead of a gun, or vice versa. I can see beginner gamers absolutely having a hard time mastering controls like this. Although I sort of feel GameCube games were sort of notorious for having difficult control schemes. I don't know if it's the controller or what. The controls were innovative, but they're hard. So I'll give that one a 3 out of 5. Next is sense of direction. For the most part, the levels are actually pretty linear. It's kind of hard to get lost. I think I lost my way just a handful of times, 2 or 3 times. I can count on one hand. And levels are also small enough that it really doesn't take a lot of time to figure out where to go, even if you do get lost. So 4 out of 5, easily on that one. Ease of travel. Now this category is a little bit different in this game, considering you don't actually travel between locations. However, I do want to bring up a point here about levels, traveling within certain levels. Some levels have infinite guards, and if you get caught in certain areas, it's almost impossible to get out of them alive. The first example that comes to my head is the level Conspiracy, where you break into the NSE building. Right behind the main desk, which seems to be the way you're supposed to go, is a big glass door, and it leads to a room with a camera in it, and as soon as that camera spots you, guards just swarm the room, and I have never been able to get out alive. So that's, yeah, that level is a little bit not off-putting, but it kind of leads you in the wrong direction, and it kind of puts you in a death trap, and it's not very fair. There are a handful of spots like that in this game, so not very many, but I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Combat system. So in my original scale, this is actually the leveling system, but considering this game doesn't have a leveling system, I had to switch to something else. So we're going to talk about the combat system here for a second. It's actually pretty cool. As you progress, you get new powers and new abilities, and you also get guns mixed in there, and it allows you to sort of create your own combat system. Every player is going to approach the combat a little bit differently. Some people might rely more on their psychic abilities, some will just run and gun, because that's just what some people do, and most people probably, will kind of mix them up a little bit, like I do. And I think that's really, really cool, that it just gives you the ability to create your own combat system and approach it however you want. It's 5 out of 5 for that one. Menu navigation. I never really went into the main menus during gameplay. I didn't need to. You don't really have to unless you need to check objectives or whatever. But menus are straightforward. The gun/power menus that you use to swap between your guns and your powers, they're fine, but again, the control scheme is a little bit tricky, and you can accidentally equip the one you don't want. So that one is a 3 out of 5. So the score for gameplay, 19 out of 25. Not too bad. Let's move on to characters then. Development. Character development in this game is actually pretty solid. I mean, our main character, John, goes from this skeptical, unwilling doctor who debunks psychics into this powerhouse psychic that, like, saves the world. Okay, maybe not saves the world, but does what's right and saves a lot of people. He's a great guy. Then we have Jane, who's our other main character, and she knows John is very skeptical of her and doesn't believe her, but eventually, once he learns the truth, she helps him understand what's going on. She doesn't, make fun of him or berate him. So that's pretty cool. The Colonel goes from our commanding officer to a really good friend. We actually save him later on in the game, and so on. So the characters are spot on in this game. It's 5 out of 5. Backstory. Now, we don't know a ton of detail of characters' backstories, but it's enough that we can jump right into the game. We know that John is a doctor, and we know that he doesn't believe that psychic powers exist. We know Jane is a self-proclaimed psychic who's been involved with John in the past, making fun of his writings, that sort of thing. Do we really need to know more than that? Not really. I mean, it would be interesting to know more, but it wouldn't contribute to the game anymore. So the amount of background that we have is actually perfect. It's just fine. I would definitely be interested to know a little bit more about some of the other characters, but it's fine. Just fine. 4 out of 5. Relationships. Also very, very well done. John and Jane's relationship is constantly fluctuating throughout the game, changes from level to level, and just evolves really, really well. They start out sort of as almost as enemies, and they eventually go to colleagues, and then eventually they become friends, and Colonel's sort of the same way. So relationships with the other team members really aren't explored a ton, but they're also kind of secondary. They're not really terribly important to the game. And then John's relationship with Director Hansen is explored a little bit too, mostly through cutscenes and in the final couple of levels. So I would give relationships a 4 out of 5 because they're very, very good. Contribution to the story. Each character that we spend a lot of time seeing does actually play a huge role in driving the story. John is obvious, he's the main character. Jane is actually a huge contributor to the story. She propels John to the asylum at the beginning. Eventually, he follows her to the NSC building, and that's just how the whole story unfolds, is because of her, really. And then the Colonel, of course, we see a lot. Hansen. Those two characters give us very crucial information to what's going on, the whole situation. So there's not a single character really that's wasted here. So it's a 5 out of 5, easily. So character gets an 18 out of 20. So we're doing great so far. Replay value. I have played this game so many times. Like, I can't put it down. It's addicting. I think it's the story and the characters and everything, and that plot twist at the end just gets me every time. It's so good. Replay value is a 5 out of 5 for sure. Music is next on the list. Memorability. This is where the game might suffer a little bit. Most of the music really isn't all that memorable. Like, if you asked me to pick a level and hum the song from it, I couldn't do it. Really, I couldn't. There's very few. But the main menu music is awesome. So unfortunately, that's a 2 out of 5. However, contribution to the atmosphere. The music may not be terribly memorable, but it does create the atmosphere of each level. The music in this game isn't designed for you to remember it. It's designed to be atmospheric. It's designed to be subdued, so that it doesn't distract from the game itself, which is actually really hard to do. But each level's music is just fantastic and fits each level perfectly. So I do have to give this 5 out of 5. Love the music's contribution to the atmosphere. Okay, so music got a 7 out of 10. That's not bad. Okay, let's discuss atmosphere since we sort of touched on it just now. Emotion and feeling. Does this game make me feel things? Yeah. There's a sense of urgency. There's a sense of wanting to know what's going on, what comes next. Mystery, intensity, the desire to save your friends. Like, there's tons of emotions and feelings going on throughout this entire game. 5 out of 5, absolutely. Immersion. Is the atmosphere immersive? If I play longer than a level at a time, yes, it is. It's kind of hard to really get into it if you're only playing a level at a time, which is how I was doing it. However, I do think the levels do a great job pulling you in. The sound effects are awesome. The different locations look fantastic. All the lighting is really, really great. The cutscenes, the music. each level just gives you like a really unique experience. And I think my favorite atmosphere in the game is actually Madness, which is the level where you go to the asylum. Super, super well done. So, immersion is good for the most part. 4 out of 5. That is a 9 out of 10 for atmosphere. Let's talk about graphics. Style. Okay, now, at the time this game came out, I'm sure these graphics were top notch, and they're still not terrible. They could be worse. They have aged some, although some games have aged a lot worse. I think the real age in this game shows during the cutscenes. The facial expressions are a little bit stiff, movements are kind of funny, that sort of thing. But gameplay itself really isn't too bad graphics-wise, so it's a 3 out of 5. Again, immersion as far as visuals go. Even though the graphics have aged, I still think the visuals are actually very, very immersive. Like I mentioned before, all the locations and the way that they're lit, and everything, it's just very well done, and it creates a very immersive experience visually. So that's a 5 out of 5. Alright, graphics get an 8 out of 10. That's not bad for a game released in I think it's 2004? Alright, the most important part of this game, of any game, story. Let's talk about pacing. Pacing was really, really good in this game. It keeps you on your toes, because you don't know what's coming next. But it always fulfills that curiosity right away. It doesn't, leave you hanging in space. Some games do. You have to give enough information to make me care, but you don't want to give too much information because then it's no fun and takes away the mystery and all that sort of thing. So the pacing of revealing the story and information is really, really good. And if you're actually paying enough attention, you might catch on to what's going on before the end of the game. I didn't my first time through, but some people might. So 5 out of 5. Engagement. This goes back to some of the previous things, compelling characters, the unique storytelling, well-placed emotional moments. The game's absolutely engaging. 5 out of 5. The story is engaging, I should say. Originality. I've never seen another game like this. If I could give this a 10 out of 5 for originality, I would. But that's kind of cheating. I can't do that. The storytelling, as in my experience anyway, is one of a kind. The back and forth between flashbacks and the present, while revealing information at the same time, and doing it at the correct speed, is actually really, really hard to do, and hats off to this game, because it absolutely nails it. 5 out of 5 on originality. I wish I could give it more than that. How the world and the characters change. This links back again to character development. A lot of these kind of link back to each other. Each character has really strong reactions to what's going on and the events around them. Character attitudes and behaviors are changing all the time according to what's going on and how much they know. So yeah, that's really, really well done. The characters' reactions and changing is excellent. 5 out of 5. So story gets 20 out of 20, and I'm not surprised because the story's amazing. And the final score for this game, 86 out of 100. That is an awesome score. That's going to be a hard one to beat, I think, actually. Let me see here. Metacritic gave it a 76. And GameSpot gives it a 7.5, which would be a 75 on my scale. My rating is definitely higher. I think this game is definitely a hidden gem in the gaming world. Unfortunately, when it was released, it got overshadowed by a lot of much larger titles. It sort of got swept under the rug a little bit, which is highly unfortunate because it's one of my favorite games of all time. And I'm just gonna throw this out there. I think it's one of the only games that I've ever seen that could actually convert to a movie relatively well if you approach it correctly. I would love to see somebody tackle this as a movie. If you ever have access to this game, definitely give it a shot. It's worth a playthrough of your own. Alright, well that is it for this review of Second Sight. I'm excited to start another game. Finally get to add another game to this channel. I'm gonna do something a little more Halloween related since Halloween is coming up on us. Make sure you follow my Facebook page. I'm gonna be dropping some hints as to what game I'm gonna be playing next. If you'd like to see more, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment if you'd like to. And, till I see you next time. Happy childhooding.